folks. Welcome back. This is the second installment for It's Time for Preachers to Be Outraged with Wickedness. Okay? This is Battle for Truth. I'm your host, Max Gomez. When we last spoke, we were talking about, as a consequence of our nature, of our nation, is existing in a moral vacuum. Okay, because of the absence of determined preachers with conviction and a moral standard for their people. We start off with 2 Samuel chapter 11 and verse 2, and we're going to read up to verse 15 to find out what happened to David when he decided to just hang around the house, okay, and not go out to battle anymore. In 2 Samuel chapter 11 and verse 2, it says, "And it came to pass in the eventide," that's like somewhere around supper time, "that David arose from off of his bed," he was just kicking back, "and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon." And he just didn't turn his face. He just kept looking. "And David sent and inquired after the woman. And one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers, and took her. And she came in unto him, and he lay with her. For she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, and said, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered. And David said to Uriah, Go down to thy house, and wash your feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. In those days, a mess meant food. See? So what happens here is that David called Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, back from the war, and just made some excuse about him giving him a report about the war, and then he sent him home to his wife. Okay? But let's see what happened with that. And he sent, party favors and flowers and food and stuff like that. He wanted to create the real romantic atmosphere. But let's see what happened. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house. And when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, Camest thou not from thy journey? And why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? And Uriah said unto David, The ark of Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go into my house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. Uriah was an honorable man, and he would not go to his home and enjoy all the comforts of his house when his fellow soldiers were in the field. So he decided to stay away from his home, and he slept by the king's door. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter unto Joab. David did this twice, tried to get him to go home twice, and he failed the second time too. And then It says, "And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, Set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die." You see how evil people get? Even the noblest of men, all of a sudden they fall victim to their own sin and their own nature, because that's who we are. And this is why we needed Jesus to come down here to save us from ourselves. At this point in the narrative, David's life, we see something that we have never witnessed before in the life of David. Not only did he sin against God in adultery and fathering of a child, but he contrived to hide those sins, murder an innocent man, and steal his wife in the process. This, my friend and brethren, demonstrates unequivocally the depravity of the human heart. What this portion of Scripture is telling us is that under the right set of circumstances, any man, regardless of his station in life, education, or upbringing, is capable of committing the most heinous of crimes. This is who we are. And this is why Jesus had to come down here, to save us from who we are. We are sinners. We are a fallen race of men. And we need a redemption that is outside of ourselves, because we can't do it. There's just no way that even the best man could save himself from his nature. But you know, God knew David better than he knew himself, or better than David knew himself. And God thought that this man was worth saving from his backslidden state. And like I said, we could talk about our national leaders with this in mind. We could say that all leaders, even our leaders today, have a penchant for corruption. But the root of the problem is much deeper than that, brethren. The root of the problem is the deafening silence coming from our pulpits. And that is one of the major reasons why our leaders are so wicked. No spiritual leader of any consequence is holding our president's feet to the fire and shaming him. We're not preaching to the king anymore. Our preachers have not taken the place of the prophets of old. One of the responsibilities of the national prophet was to make sure that the king received the admonishment of the Lord. Our preachers today can't be bothered to call our leaders out on the carpet for their depravities and sins. Back in David's day, though, preachers and prophets were fearless, and they had the power of God at their disposal. Let us see how King David's spiritual leader, Nathan, reacted when David fell into some personal sin. We shall continue this saga on the third video that we publish. Stay with us. This is Battle for Truth. My name is Max Gomez, your host. Bye now.